This is the story everyone cleans up, waters down, and turns into a feel-good myth. Strip away the trophies, the muscles, the fame, and what's left is a man who, by every logical measure, should not still be alive. People love to joke about how he always gets back up in movies. Shot, beaten, broken, left for dead, and somehow still standing. But what almost no one talks about is that real life treated him the same way, and it never yelled cut. Pain wasn't scripted. Injuries weren't choreographed. Survival wasn't guaranteed. From the very beginning, existence itself seemed to reject him. Imagine growing up knowing, not suspecting, but knowing you were unwanted. Not subtly, not emotionally distant, bluntly, brutally, unmistakably rejected. The kind of rejection that doesn't fade with age, but burns itself into your nervous system. Home was not a place of safety. It was a place of tension, cruelty, and psychological damage, disguised as normal. When you're young, you don't question it. You assume this is just how families are. You assume love feels like fear and approval feels impossible. That damage doesn't disappear when you grow up. It becomes the lens through which you see the world. As a child, he didn't dream of fame. He dreamed of escape. He ran early, too early, before he had any tools to survive. Anger followed him like a shadow. Chaos felt familiar, almost comforting, because it matched what he had grown up with. Pain made sense. Calm did not. He didn't become volatile because he wanted to be dangerous. He became volatile because danger was the only language he knew. Acting didn't save him immediately. It gave him somewhere to hide, somewhere to be someone else, somewhere stronger, somewhere respected. Movies weren't entertainment to him. They were survival manuals. He watched heroes endlessly, obsessively, not because he wanted to be famous, but because he wanted proof that someone could be beaten down over and over and still matter. He didn't want to be admired. He wanted to be worthy. That obsession carried him straight into a brutal reality. New York didn't romanticize struggle. It chewed him up. He slept wherever he could, bus stations, doorways, forgotten corners of the city. Violence was routine. Hunger was constant. Fear was background noise. He had nothing to fall back on. No family safety net. No money. No reassurance that tomorrow would be better. Emotionally and spiritually, he was empty. But there was one thing that refused to die. The belief that this couldn't be the end. That belief was tested relentlessly. Every door he knocked on slammed shut. Every audition turned into another reminder that he didn't fit. His face, his voice, his body, all wrong. Casting rooms didn't see potential. They saw a problem, a defect, someone who could only ever be a criminal, a background threat, a disposable presence. Over time, rejection stops sounding like noise and starts sounding like truth. He almost believed them, almost accepted that this was it, that some people are simply born to lose. That's where most stories end quietly, with a life shrinking into regret. But this one didn't. It twisted. Instead of begging for permission, he started writing his anger, humiliation, and desperation onto paper. Not polished fantasies. Raw survival. He was broke. His wife was pregnant. Time was running out. He drove west with almost nothing, in a car that barely made it, chasing an idea that made no sense to anyone but him. At one point, survival became so desperate that he tried to give away the one thing that loved him unconditionally. That's how close he was to disappearing entirely. And this is where everyone thinks they know what happens next. They don't. Not really. Because the truth of what came after is darker, riskier, and far more terrifying than the clean version you've heard. And if you think this story turns hopeful here, you're not ready for what comes next. Stay with me. Now, before you go any further, this is where most people click away, assuming they already know the ending. Don't. Because the part everyone celebrates is built on a decision that could have destroyed everything. When the script was finished, it wasn't magic. It wasn't destiny. It was a gamble that bordered on self-destruction. Studios didn't see a miracle. They saw a product. They wanted the story, not the man behind it. And for the first time in his life, money was waved in front of him in amounts he had never imagined. Life-changing money. The kind of money that could have erased hunger, fear, and instability overnight. Everyone around him told him to take it. Agents, advisors, voices of reason. Sell the script. Step aside. Be grateful. Wait your turn. But he knew something they didn't. If someone else became the face of that story, it would confirm every rejection he had ever absorbed. It would mean they were right all along, that he was never meant to stand at the center of his own life. So he said no. Again and again. As the numbers climbed, so did the pressure. Walking away would have been sensible. Staying was reckless. This wasn't confidence. This was terror mixed with conviction. He wasn't betting on success. He was betting on survival. When the gamble finally went through, it wasn't because everyone suddenly believed in him. It was because they assumed it would fail quietly. A small movie. A disposable experiment. Something to get him out of the way. What followed shocked everyone. Audiences didn't just watch it. They felt it. They saw themselves in the bruises, the doubt, the stubborn refusal to quit. The story exploded beyond the screen. Overnight, he became a symbol. Fame arrived fast, loud, and overwhelming. But here's what no one tells you. Fame doesn't heal childhood wounds. Applause doesn't replace love. Standing on the biggest stages in the world didn't silence the voice telling him he wasn't enough. Even at his highest moments, something was missing. And instead of slowing down, he pushed harder. He decided that legacy had to be earned through suffering. That pain was proof. He blurred the line between character and reality, punishing his body with injuries most people would never willingly accept. Broken bones, surgeries, long recoveries ignored. Each time he survived, it reinforced the idea that stopping meant losing. But real life doesn't follow movie rules. The losses don't fade to black. They stay. When tragedy hit his family, it wasn't dramatic. It was silent and devastating. There was no script to rewrite. No training montage to prepare him. Grief stripped away the myth entirely. For the first time, toughness meant nothing. Control meant nothing. Success meant nothing. He was forced to sit with pain he couldn't outrun or transform into a performance. And then, just as he was barely standing, fear returned in another form. The possibility of losing another child. Suddenly, all the sacrifices he had justified came into question. Was it worth it? Was the legacy real? Or just an excuse to avoid vulnerability? These questions don't have easy answers. They don't resolve neatly. They linger. And they change you. This is the part of the story no motivational quote prepares you for. And we're not done yet. If you're still here, this is where everything finally comes into focus. And before we end, remember what I asked you at the beginning, because this is why it matters. After everything, after the fame, the injuries, the losses, something shifted. Strength stopped meaning endurance alone. It started meaning presence. He began to understand that survival wasn't about standing alone anymore. It was about connection, about showing up, about admitting regret, about recognizing that time is the one opponent you never beat. The philosophy everyone quotes didn't come from confidence. It came from exhaustion, from loss, from the realization that life hits harder than any opponent ever could. And the real victory isn't domination, it's continuation. Looking back, he didn't see trophies. He saw moments missed, conversations postponed, people he couldn't protect, no matter how strong he tried to be. And yet, there was something else. Gratitude. Not for fame, but for the chance to still be here, to still feel, to still love. That's why this story matters. Not because it proves anyone can win, but because it shows how close someone can come to disappearing and still find meaning. Now here's where you come in. If this story kept you watching, if even one moment made you uncomfortable, surprised, or reflective, don't let it end silently. Scroll down and leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long. Write still here, or worth it, or anything at all. That tells the algorithm this story matters and tells me you made it to the end. If you want to push the hype, hit like and share it with someone who thinks they're alone in their struggle. Stories like this only survive when people engage with them. And if you want more deep, uncomfortable, real stories that don't sugarcoat success, make sure you stay connected. Because the truth is, most legends aren't built on glory. They're built on survival. And sometimes, just getting up one more time is the most heroic thing a person can do.